At Chris Kehler Holistic, we demonstrate real healing and real caring to your health issues and needs. Our solution for you is an alternative to the alternative. Our out-of-the-box treatment methods are aimed to your specific well-being and are quite different than most. Venturing down the realm of quantum energy healing, Chris uses unique modalities of healing, such as spiritual intervention with pendulum dowsing, sacred geometry tools such as the neutralization, divinity, and sun ring. Another tool Chris uses is a 5-tiered pyramid affectionately known as the Silver Light Pyramid to activate quantum activity within the body. Also, Chris Kehler Holistic uses radionic technologies in various platforms with specific liquid mineral ionics to balance out excesses and deficiencies within the body. At Chris Kehler Holistic, our goal is to get tangible and measurable results in the least amount of time possible so you can carry on with what's important in your life. Another advantage to this unique energy healing is that it can be done at a distance healing session. So location is not a barrier and can be done conveniently at your home, office, just about anywhere through Skype or telephone conferencing. Eliminate costly protocols, expensive monthly supplements, high-priced allopathic operations, invasive surgeries, and dubious medication applications that keep you trapped in a financial and health rat race. Get a specific, customized, out-of-the-box solution tailored for your health recovery. At Chris Kehler Holistic, we are warm welcoming and want to put you at ease with your visit to us. Please visit www.chriskehler.net for further information as we welcome your questions and inquiries to starting this unique journey. At Chris Kehler Holistic, we want to show you that we are the alternative to the alternative and the out-of-the-box solution to customize an answer for you to spend less and gain more in your high vibrancy journey. Visit www.chriskehler.net. Real healing and real caring to your health needs.
Mr. Chris Kehler.
I am your host for tonight, as always, Chris Kehler, live from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Bob, have you ever stepped outside and there's 4 feet of snow around you? It's minus 30 degrees Celsius, which is minus 1,000,000 Fahrenheit,
Ooh.
And the wind is blowing at 70 kilometers an hour, which is 10 million miles an hour.
Only when I came home from visiting here to see where I was going to live down here in South Carolina. I went home from here. I went home and I drove straight home, 12 to 13 hours. And I drove straight back to the New York area. I had shorts on, short sleeve shirt, T-shirt, the whole 9 yards. Get out of the SUV, and I was past my knees, and I'm 6'1". I was past my knees in snow.
Well, you'd feel quite comfortable in Winnipeg right now. We've had 2 blizzards back to back.
Wow.
We had a blizzard, dumped a foot of snow on us, and then a week later, just yesterday, we had another blizzard, and it's just shoveling after shoveling after shoveling. And
man.
It's what we love. This is Winnipeg.
Yeah, you got to get the snowplows, man.
Yeah. We got a special guest on our show tonight. We're going to bring him on in just a minute. It's Delahnnovah-Starr Livingstone. We're going to talk about the Luciferian agenda and all that kind of stuff. That's right down my alley. That's what I've been working with lately. Updates in energy. A few weeks since the last report. What I've been finding lately, now these are anybody who practices energy work, and any one of my students, I got 36 students now. I counted them. Oh my goodness. I got kids, I got students. This is
nice.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Anybody who's doing the course, anybody who practices your own type of energy work, what I found, 3 big things, another new one today. Number one is that, you ever say the words, you rock my world, or how's your world today? Well, if you put focus on the person's world and you remove the vortex of reptilians from within and around it, that opens up a huge door. Okay, that takes away a big barrier. Another big one is within our astral body. Okay, we all have these energy bodies, and there's the emotional, mental, causal, many others, but there's the astral body. This is a big thing where we go astral traveling. It has a lot to do with our sleep patterns. So if you take that astral body and ask the super soldier within the astral body to leave and go into ether, that opens up another huge door. Then, of course, you have to bring the astral body back because it's on the planet Saturn where it's fighting this ongoing war that's been going on forever. So that in itself is huge. But one of the biggest ones I found that I've been having tons of success yesterday and today is removing a compound called boric acid. Boric acid is used a lot to kill cockroaches. It's used in fire retardant materials. It's used to make LCD screens. Thank you very much, Ty, for that knowledge. Boric acid is very much within our use. You can buy it on the shelf. It's there. Look into somebody's nervous system, remove the boric acid, numbness goes away, pain goes away. Look in the muscular system, everywhere. Boric acid, who knew? Take that information, write it down on a piece of paper, and use it as you need to use it. Now, also what I have been given is a little gift from my toolmaker, Wayne. It's actually a radionic code, and it's the basic node for humanity. And this isn't something I'm going to give out because it can be very dangerous if you don't use it properly. There's a proper way to use it on a person. So that what that does is it takes all your components and takes any reptilian vibration out of it and creates a full human concept of all your atoms, molecules, and all your energy. So that has been very useful. Using that a lot and having some fun. Our guest tonight, Delahnnovah-Starr Livingstone, was born on March 16th, 1939 in Montreal, Canada, with the given name Clifton Ross Moore. He attended grade school in Winnipeg, Manitoba, of all places, high school in Vancouver, British Columbia, and studied 4 years at the University of British Columbia in the early 60s, honoring in mathematics and philosophy. Through the latter half of the 60s, he managed the Vancouver Rock Band and Mother Tucker's Yellow Duck. Starting in the early 70s, Delahnnovah-Starr underwent Christ Melchizedek teaching, which continued through the 70s. During the teaching, he was given his Melchizedek spirit name, Delahnnovah-Starr Livingstone, which means new day. From the teachings, he first became fully familiar with the fundamentals of the higher dimensions. Delahnnovah-Starr first learned about the presence of Radionnic ships in the heavenly host in the winter of 1971, and in the early 1990s he was shown how to recognize this presence by the specific cloud signatures made when they teleport into Earth's fifth dimension. In the winter of 2016, he was asked to add a chapter about the Radionic fleet and how to recognize them to the Revelatorium. Please welcome to the show, Delahnnovah-Starr Livingstone. Delahnnovah, how are you today, sir?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Yeah,
Oh,
perfectly.
good. Oh, I'm fine. Then we're all done. Two things. Melchizedek. A lot of people don't know because it sounds different than it reads. You know, it's Melchizedek. So
we're going to talk tonight about the Luciferian rebellion. To start off with, what is the Luciferian rebellion? Now, for me to say something, within all of the clients I work with, I do remove Lucifer on a daily basis. Everybody has got this Lucifer energy, this Lucifer consciousness, the Luciferian will within them. So to have you on talking about this is perfect timing.
Well, to make a long story short on that's a condition in consciousness, not a presence in consciousness. The long and the short of it is that the Luciferian self, it's called the Luciferian self-will rebellion of the cosmic overplus. It began 5 billion years ago. We'll get into that a little bit later. It was officially ended by Christ on the Mount 2,000 years ago, and we're now in the cleanup in the aftermath. That's what's going on at the present time. So you're talking about Luciferian presence. So Lucifer himself has been in solitary confinement on a planet called Zab for over 3 million years. So there's nobody around here called Lucifer doing stuff.
So
Okay.
it's more so a consciousness, more so...
It's conditioned. It's lesser frequencies that resulted in consciousness as a result of the rebellion. What I want to do, and I'm going to ask you, if I'm going to be throwing stuff out here that, unless you read the Revelatorium, is going to be coming right from left field, and I mean way out there. If you let me knit it all together, the end of it answers questions you might have at the beginning. So instead of coming up with questions all the way along, wait until the end. If there's something unanswered, then you can... But there's quite a very big billboard that has to be created here, even to get to the point we're at right now. And the long and the short of it is that creation, or the universe, what's called the universe, is actually 18th dimensional. The first two dimensions, 18 and 17, are sort of like, I don't know how you call them, pre-energy, pre-stuff, but the actual part of the whole show that relates to us as we are here is the 15th dimension, which is what religions call the Holy Trinity. The entirety of the 15th dimension is the Holy Trinity. They're one and the same. They're not in the fifth dimension. They are the fifth dimension and 15th dimension. And as the religions call the Holy Trinity, they call it Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, because they don't have a full understanding of what's involved there. But creation is actually a product of consciousness from a Father consciousness who's named Alpha. Revelations give it right in the very first chapter, verse 7 or 8, I can't remember. So, I am Alpha and Omega. It's right there. Alpha is the intelligence factor as the Father. Omega is the mother factor, and attribute is substance. The two fused together to bring out a third aspect, which was a begotten son-daughter, reflecting the father and the mother in the son and the daughter. And that combined frequency is called the only begotten son-daughter, and its attribution is energy. Intelligence, energy, and substance is all there is. It's as simple as that. Everything comes down from that. So there's your Holy Trinity, Father, Mother, and Son, Daughter. It's unmanifested. It's just in the air everywhere, so to speak. The very, very first outer projection, i.e. concretation of those frequencies in existence, is called the Cuban sphere of Alpha and Omega, and that's in the 14th dimension. And that's all that's in there. It's a vast cube of pure substance, a vast sphere of pure intelligence, a vast cube of pure substance, and a vast what's called a Y factor. It's the edges of the cube. If you look face on, they're blue, and the Y factor is the action of the only begotten son, daughter of the energy. The sphere's electromagnetic equivalent is red, the substance is yellow, and the energy is blue. So again, red, yellow, and blue are your three primary colors. All the other 16 million odd Pantone colors have come from those three. So again, we're back to that same basic three things. The first Cuban sphere is actually the interface between the unmanifested frequencies in the 15th dimension of the creators and creation, which begins in the 13th dimension as the island of paradise. Now, the island of paradise is at the top end of what's called the inner creation, which is the 13th dimension down to the 9th. There is a gap. That's the 8th dimension is actually a gap because the outer creation that we're in starts at the 7th dimension down to the 1st. And the 8th dimension is actually the same as the Cuban sphere, is the interface between the Holy Trinity frequencies and the manifested creation below. The 8th dimension is the interface between the inner creation and the outer creation outside of it. The outer creation surrounds the inner. The outer creation was completed, finished long ago. The inner creation, the outer creation is over 900 trillion light years across and still in its infancy. It's just getting going. The scientists say that the universe is 14.5 billion because, as a matter of fact, that's as far as the telescopes can see. 10 years ago, the universe was 13.5 billion years across. Now they've got better telescopes. It's 14.5 billion, and they don't tell you that it used to be only 13. You see what I'm saying? Next 10 years from now, it's going to be 15.5 billion years ago, and nobody will ever mention that it was only 14.5. It's actually 900 trillion light years across, and still in diapers. It's just getting started. So now we're getting closer into where we're at the present time. The 7th dimension is sort of the main state of the outer creation. That's where most of the stuff goes on. The 5th dimension is where the evolutionary processes start. That's the beginning. The 5th dimension is the bottom line of creation. This is probably the most important thing that can be said today. The 5th dimension is the bottom line of creation. That's where everything starts. There is nobody and nothing in the 4th and the 3rd dimension except mechanizations, I guess, platforms. But life starts in the 5th dimension and evolves upward from there. We are at the 3rd dimension because 3.5 million years ago, the root, and I'm going to get into root races again in a minute because I have to qualify that. The root race that was on on Earth's surface, it was the last of 12 root races that had come through over the last 250 million years in a cycle. It was the last of the last. They're called the Adamics. The entire Asian race are the Adamic root race. through Luciferian interference, and I've got to qualify Lucifer here, but I have to do the background first. Through Luciferian interference, the Adamics fell into the third dimension and got trapped in. So we've been in the third dimension ever since. There's untold hundreds of trillions of planets, right? All with life in the fifth dimension. There's only 27,000 of them, and they're all in a local area here called the local universe of 1,000 galaxies, in which the Luciferian effect even affected. It didn't go very far, even though it seems to be like people here on Earth, it looks like half the show, because we're right in the middle of it. And there's only 2,500 planets that actually did get a third dimension in it.
We're trying to get back into the fifth dimension. That's what we're trying to do.
No, you're right. We're not trying. You've got it correct. You absolutely have it correct. It's not that we're trying to get back into the fifth dimension. That is absolutely true. At the end of Aquarius, which we've just gone into now, it's a 2,000-year cycle. The ages like Piscean was 2,000, Aquarius is 2,000. They're called dispensations because during that time, a new frequency is dispensated to the evolution. So they're dispensations. They're 2,000 years each. Every 12 of those is a cycle of 25,000 years. Garden of Eden was the beginning of the last one, December 21st of 2012, which was built up as a big thing and nothing happened. It was monumental because it was the end of the old cycle, beginning of the new cycle. At the end of Aquarius, 2,000 years from now, the entirety of the population on the planet will be ascended. The whole population of Earth will be returned to the fifth dimension in one shot.
Okay.
Long and short, that is, those who have not got their consciousness up in frequency high enough yet, make that jump, them to be taken up, because ascendancy isn't something you do to get yourself there. Ascendancy is by grace. You're put up there when you're ready. You see, the term ascendancy actually refers to when I said that evolution starts in the fifth dimension. There's two streams of beings in creation. The descendant beings who man calls angels and so on, they're the administrators and the managers and so on all the way down. The evolution start at the fifth dimension, and they're the ones that are sending upwards back through the seventh dimension, back through the inner, to become eventually trinitized at the feet of the creators. The descendancies that come down are fully triune Christ celestial beings, even as they walk around on planet Earth right now, because there's millions and millions of volunteers here. They're light workers. The people call them light workers. When Earth went into the third dimension, volunteers started coming in from all over creation to keep things stable and to slowly work mankind back up the ladder. And we're now at that point of no return. We're at the point where it's going to be in or out. If your consciousness hasn't responded to the attunements and the energies coming in and the teachings that are going on and the guidance of your own inner soul atom and so on at this point, then, as I say, you go off to one of the other 2,500 planets and you keep on going until you get there.
If you haven't done the awakening process, You're not going to go into these higher dimensions, of course, and that's something that I talk to people all about. It's all about the awakening. It's all about the realization of all of this. So if you haven't awakened, if you're too stubborn to see the signs, then what happens to you?
The next dispensation after Aquarius is called the Capricorn. The astrology signs, it's the same frequencies, just more of them. The sun signs, astrology or astrophysical sun signs, go through in a progression of Pisces, Aries, Taurus, around the clock. The dispensations do the same thing in reverse. We came from Pisces, we're into Aquarius. 2,000 years from now, we'll start into Capricorn. Capricorn, the spiritual principle of Capricorn is gate of life, gate of death. So I have already just told you when the final judgment is. Going into a Capricorn, if you've made it through, enough, awareness, acceptance, and your consciousness is raised sufficiently through the gate of life, you're back into the fifth dimension. If not, then you're returned back into the third dimension, but on another planet, because Earth will no longer have a third dimension because it never did have it and never should have. Simple as that. Where the Luciferian stuff comes in, and this is a fairly big topic, the outer creation is 900 trillion light years across, and it's composed of 7 great super universes. Okay? And their attributions are all in permutations of the 7 frequencies of the Holy Trinity. If you take intelligence, energy, and substance and permute them, you end up with 7 different frequencies: intelligence, energy, substance, substance, energy, substance, intelligence, energy, substance. Did I get them? No, energy, intelligence, and the final one is triune, which is full intelligence, energy, and substance. Every one of the super universe started in that progression. The first one ever created was based on the attribute of intelligence, meaning that the intelligence is normal, but the other two were lower in frequency. I don't mean lower and lower, but less volume of it. All right. The second bifurcated off the first was the universe of super universe of energy. So that meant that intelligence and substance were diminished. So it went. We're now in the seventh, and it's a full triune: intelligence, energy, and substance. The super universes themselves are composed of what are called local universes of approximately 1,000 galaxies. You may have heard of that term, local universe. Mm-hmm. Now, the being that walked the planet 2,000 years ago, known as Jesus Christ of Nazareth, was actually a bestowal projection. I'll get to the term bestowal. The super universes are comprised or broken up into jurisdictions of called local universes. The local universes are all put together and run by what are called creator's son daughters. They're paradisical beings. They represent the Holy Trinity in the outer creation dimension. Who had seen me had seen the Father. That's what he meant by that. Their frequencies are straight through as the same. They, in their consciousness, they have sufficient consciousness to be able to create 1,000 galaxies and keep it together and keep it running and keep it expanding. Jesus and Mary Magdalene, who was his soulmate in the projection 2,000 years ago, had the whole consciousness of the whole local universe running through them as they walked around the planet. It was quite a miracle. When an evolution on a fifth dimensional evolution has reached enough stages of training, as it were, through different experiences and so on, to be able to be now ready to be ascended up in mass into the seventh dimension, as the last and final step, they are visited, they're given what's called a bestowal, usually a teacher's son daughter, but their creator, their triune celestial beings will incarnate into their midst, show them what it's like to be a Christ, teach them how to be a Christ, and by their example, they can see what the future for them holds. That's called a bestowal. It's 1,000 years. Once that's finished, then they are ascended up in mass into the seventh, where they begin another whole cycle of learning how to do it. Once they finish that, then they're back up into the ninth dimension, eventually for trinitization as triune celestial beings in their own right. Then they come back out to creation and help the expansion and so on. And that's been going on for 900 trillion years. The long and the short of it is Jesus, as the creator, son, daughter of the local universe, in the entirety of the local universe, of which there are trillions of planets and bestowals going on, only one ever gets done by the creator, son, daughter themselves as part of their training. So Earth was where Jesus, or Christ Michael, did the bestowal. He was supposed to have walked for 1,000 years, but he got cut off through, the politics at the time. After 3 days in the cave, you're talking about ascending your molecular structure up through higher DNA. It's a 12-strand DNA, and it turns into Morontia. The substance factor in the fifth dimension is called Morontia substance. It's free of inertia, and it's totally free of static and lesser conditions. Anyway, from the fifth dimension, Jesus was able to lower his frequency to the third dimension. He appeared for 40 years around the planet, like in the Mesopotamia areas, the great god Quetzalcoatl, so on. But he couldn't stay because the frequency links were broken. So the Earth fashioned their own ill fate. All of the stuff that happened for the last 2,000 years, the wars, and that should never have happened. It's solely a consequence of the crucifixion that all that stuff took place. We're in the sort of culmination of all of that now, but here's the thing. And this is going to sound a little bit funny. As of about 1970 or so, the consciousness of man was okay, but it wasn't, there was energies coming in through the 80s and so on. If they weren't accepted or received properly, could have caused some really big gyrations and some physical problems. 1994 was slated to be a huge earthquake where the West Coast would fall off. That was all of the talk. You can recall, you're of that age. You can recall that all through the 60s and 70s, there was talk about the West Coast going. Well, in 1994, there was a 7.2 earthquake in San Francisco, which is almost normal size because from 72 up until that time, the consciousness of mankind had jumped astronomically. And that's still going on. Man is about, let's put it this way, things could be a lot worse. They could be a little bit better than they are now, but things are going really well on this cosmic plan of bringing man back up into the fifth dimension. And that's just one of about 20 things that are going on right now. All of this is at a culmination point because, as I mentioned, we've gone from the end of a 25,000 year cycle into a new one. We just finished the Pisces dispensation. We're now all the way through into Aquarius. The transition started in 1988. There was a double core supernova in the Melchizedek worlds of the Magellanic Clouds. Some of you will remember that. Well, that was the beginning, initiating the frequencies for Aquarius. And 2014, the transfer from Pisces through into Aquarius was complete. We are now in the age of Aquarius. Just started, but we're now in the age of Aquarius. There's also a 250,000 year cycle. There's a big one, which is called the Galactic year, when Earth does a full migration around the galaxy, a 250 million year cycle. The evolutions that were put on Earth started at that time, and there was 12 of them. A planet doesn't evolve life out of the molecules of the water. Life is put there to go through training processes. Training is a bad word, but they're learning processes and experience and so on. The reason why man has a third dimension animal kingdom on its outer surface is because, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I say the threads will tie. 250 billion years ago, there was another planet between, and you'll know about this one, between Mars and Jupiter, called Melchizedek. And it was a confinement planet. The Luciferian rebellion started 5.5 billion years ago, and I still have to tell you what that was and what he did and what the problems were. But the long and the short of it is, those that were the worst in it were confined to Melchizedek as a confinement planet, and most of those were draconians, because the draconian solar sector took the brunt of the Luciferian rebellion effect. So most of the guys that really turned upside down in their frequencies were draconians. So they were brought to Melchizedek. Anyway, they factioned, they had a laser fight, and they blew the planet. So the asteroid belt is the remnants, the comets, and everything out past the Kuiper belt.
Yeah, it's a remnant of the water planet, right?
Yep. And a loosened satellite smacked Earth. Long ago, something hit Earth and caused its frequency to drop from 12-strand crystalline DNA, which it was at the time, down into 2-strand DROS. It's called DROS, which is magma and all that kind of stuff. So, a billion years ago, a matrix program was worked out in the Melchizedek worlds to initiate an organic evolution on Earth's surface that would, over time, slowly, eventually evolve the Earth's substance back into crystalline, almost finished. If you can see the process, plants, the leaves fall, and after a while the stuff gets pushed down. It gets down deep, it gets hot, it turns to crystal. The tectonic plates, now that it's in the temperate zone, when it's finished, it gets moved around. So now it's up in the Arctic, but something new is moved in and it goes on there. That's what the tectonic plates are doing, moving the surface of the planet around. So everybody eventually gets that evolution back into crystalline rock. And that's basically now finished too. Well, I again have to go. We're now talking about local universes. Okay. Inside of each local universe of about roughly 1,000 galaxies, the galaxies are themselves divided up into what are called local solar sectors. These are 1,000 solar systems. Okay? Earth belongs to the Orion solar sector. Now, this is a little bit of side information. Solar law, like Earth, our solar system actually has 12 planets. It has Melchizedek, which is still in this fourth dimension, but the third dimension is gone. It has a high energy planet inside the photosphere of the sun called Vulcan, of all things. That's where Vulcans come from. And the idea of the Vulcan. And outside is our good friend Nibiru, which doesn't yet have its third dimension formed. It's still a fourth dimensional planet. That's why the energies.
That's why we can't see it.
Yeah, that's why nobody's ever seen it, but the effects have been there because it isn't yet, third dimension. So it has the 12 planets. So you have 12 planets. Each of the planets have a astrophysical from the different constellations. The old people were wise. They knew what was going on. So each constellation is actually a star chamber that sets up a resonance beam, as you want to call it that way, resonance frequency. So each of the planets receives one of those particular 12 astrophysical frequencies. These are the sun signs, but these are the ones coming in now. And each one in turn returns their frequency back out to the other 12, including themselves. So you have 12 times 12, which is 144 facets of the throne, it's called. But these are the energy principles that define this solar system. The solar systems are defined by their 144 energy principles. If you go to that solar system, it's not because it's blue and the sun is green and stuff like that. It's because of these particular 144 frequencies define it.
The number 144, that kind of rings a bell. So in the Bible,
Yes,
it's about 144,000.
You jumped the gap. You went from mountaintop to mountaintop. We belong to a solar sector of 1,000 galaxies. All right. In order to be in accordance with galactic law, the solar system has to, or every planet in the solar system has to be in accordance with all 144 frequencies of each of the other 1,000 solar systems, which is 144,000. That's what the chosen ones are. It's the 144,000 energy principles that define this solar system into, or hook it up into galactic law as a whole. It's not 1,000 people walking around patting themselves on the back.
Get your ego out of there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everything is energy principles. If you go into the Bible, it's all energy principles.
Sure.
Here's a good one. The Ark of the Covenant. Geez, my mind's good. There's no such thing as senior moments. There's Alzheimer's and Someheimer's. Sometimes you get Someheimer's. Anyway, the Ark of the Covenant is not a box with a machine in it or funny rays and stuff like that. The Israelis made a covenant with the creators that they would act as crucible for the upcoming bestowal of Christ. In other words, they said, we will house in our conscience as a society that bestow. So that was the Ark and Covenant. Like when I made an agreement with your fellow Winnipeg, whenever you make an agreement with anybody, there's an Ark and consciousness between you. And that Ark holds up the agreement until the agreement is fulfilled or gets dissolved by malpractice or whatever. But anyway, there's an Ark of consciousness. The Ark of consciousness was the Ark of the Covenant between the Israelis and God that they would do.
Let me throw something in there. When I'm working with somebody, working in a healing capacity,
Sure.
I do a lot of soul work, moving the soul here and there, purifying, making adjustments. What I'm being told lately to do is for Ascension is to put the person's soul within an ark.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense. You're making an agreement.
That's right. Yeah, well, that's it. Noah's Ark was an agreement between Noah and his wife. They were called material son daughters. They're fifth dimensional, and their job was to administer the evolution that's going on the planet. The third dimension. Their job was taking care of that. When it looked like Atlantis, this is again jumping because Atlantis almost did the same thing Melchizedek did. But when Atlantis looked like it was going to go, as it were, the threat was coming, they formed an arc and consciousness between them and took in the cubistic matrices of all of the animal kingdom. Now, because the animal kingdom is matrixed in a male side and a female side, they took in a male matrix and a female side. So that's why 2 by 2. It's as simple as that. Now, that was a precaution, because if the outer surface went, then it could be refurbished, because don't forget the job was to get Earth up into the frequencies it needs to be, because 250,000 years from now, it's going to be teleported to the womb of Orion and become a protostar, child becoming parent. That's the big job that's going on right now. Earth is moving up into a stage now where it's going to become a star. That's one of the other things that's going on, right? The energies right now are now coming into a focalization to start that next step up, because it's a way, way behind schedule because of the 3.5 million years that the people that are going to do the teleportation, i.e. the Adamics, have been in the third dimension and not in the fifth dimension getting ready.
I want to put you on the spot for 1 sec. I want to ask your opinion on something. Now, of course, what you're talking about, it resonates highly with me. And I live in left field. Now, a series of videos, Carrie Cassidy did an interview with somebody named Ashiana Dean, who gets very deep into this whole concept, just like you do, but talks about some different scenarios. So ultimately, anybody who's really following all this stuff and trying to decide what's going on here, can you tell me where somebody
let me go, because there's a really much, see, people put together their idea or view or conclusions of what's going on based on what they got to work with. If there's a whole pile more up there to work with that they don't know about, then what they will draw conclusions about and so on will be off track just a wee bit. Mm-hmm. Because it's like ants in a field. They're completely, fully absorbed into the activities of the anthill and so on, oblivious to the fact there's a farmer plowing a field. So right. We're looking at something similar to that. Let's go right into the heart of this Luciferian thing. When I mentioned that There are 7 super universes. They have all been created on the male side, the male frequencies. Okay? There is now a 8th and new super universe that's just starting, and Earth is right in the middle of the point of bifurcation. Remember I said each super universe bifurcates off the previous?
Right.
Well, there's a new super universe. It's going to be a female universe, and then there's going to be the other 6 after that. So there will eventually be the 7 male super universes and the 7 female super universes. And then you've got that first stage, the first stage of the outer creation complete. Then there's 2 more stages to go after that. When I said we're only in the diaper stage, there's lots more to go. But anyway, the long and the short is that the female super universe is an antimatter universe, where what's meant in that sense is that it's based on consciousness, not on intelligence, energy, and substance. It's not material. This super universe on the male side, the attribution is intelligence, energy, and substance, and the express end result is Christ consciousness. That's what's this whole evolutionary process through the 5th dimension and up is taking place. They eventually go up, become Christ unit, so it's an evolution towards Christ consciousness. The substance, energy, and energy frequencies at the lowest level have been moved up and are now trinitized. In the new universe, it's the opposite. The attribution is consciousness, and the end result is intelligence, energy, and substance. So it's the exact opposite. And the fun part is that the distances between the planets and the stars and so on in this universe are trivial compared to the distances between the parts of an atom. The parts of an atom, like the electron, protons, they're astronomical compared to the sun and so on distances. Anybody into physics knows that. So the new universe is, because it's consciousness and not stuff, is going to be in the Andromeda galaxy, and it's going to be inside the atoms of the Andromeda galaxy. Half of Andromeda is a matter universe, the other half is an antimatter universe. Earth is the training sphere where the soul atoms that we're going to seed the new creation were being trained. The Earth, in other writings, Earth has been called an archangel training center. I said, that's a gross understatement, because this is the thing. Now, Orion, the importance here of Orion is that Orion, this local universe is the bifurcation point, but it's the, how do I put it? It's where the bifurcation is going to be occurring to the new universe, or super universe. Orion was the portal through which that was going to be taking place. Earth was the training sphere where everybody was being, readied and so on. The new super universe, even though it's in an antimatter form, will be back to the first one of intelligence. The first one of intelligence here is biased towards intelligence, with the other 2 reduced, but it's bifurcating off. The new one is bifurcating off a full triune universe. So in order to have a bias of intelligence in the new one, an added intelligence had to be added into this local universe. It's the only one in all of creation that has a special frequency called cosmic overplus. Plus is intelligence. There's an overplus intelligence factor in this local universe, not anywhere else.
Is this something to do with the ability for manifestation?
It's part and parcel of the manifestation, but don't forget, the manifestation in the new creation is in a form of consciousness rather than intelligence, energy, and substance. We're in the manifested, the part. But you see, you're absolutely correct in a way, because you're getting into what Lucifer did. See, we're back to Orion. 5 billion years ago, Lucifer was the Delahnnovah-Starr administrator of the Orion solar sector. Through his consciousness, he was able to create all of the stars and planets and hold them together for this local solar sector. I mean, this is a powerful being. Nothing like a creator son daughter, mind you, but still a pretty heavy duty. So he saw through his he had to have a higher intelligence factor bestowed, because in books it always said, why me? What, he was higher than intelligent of his creed, because he had to work with this higher intelligence factor of this cosmic overplus factor of this local universe. He saw ways of bringing the evolution from the 5th dimension down into the 3rd, rematerializing into matter substance instead of morontia, and in his view, that would help speed up the evolutionary process so they could get to the 7th dimension faster. Now, he meant well with that. It was all done but it was using the cosmic overplus energies that he saw here and not anywhere else that enabled him to see this particular plan. He pitched it to the Galactic Council 5 billion years ago, and it was turned down for obvious reasons, because they said it'll look good in the short term, but in the long term, it'll short circuit against things coming in down the road, like i.e. now. There's energies coming here from 3.5 billion light years away. They were set up 3.5 billion light years ago, and they weren't set up to deal with stuff like Lucifer's. It was set up to deal with the frequencies the way they're supposed to be. So when it was said it'll short circuit stuff, well, it's called the fall of pride. He said, well, this is too good a plan to, just blow off. So I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. That was the rebellion, because he rebelled against creation and the creative laws in order to even be able to do that. So they set up now a sort of a universe of their own, or attempted to. The universe, now it was not without its irritations. It didn't go very far, but it caused some headaches. They would bring higher consciousness down into the third dimension. Then through evolutionary procedures and tricks and so on, you'd be able to bring your outer consciousness, which is in the third dimension, up into the fourth, and then further. This is where the man's term of ascension means. You would be able to ascend yourself back up into the fourth, and then and again ascend yourself back up into the fifth dimension as a standalone eternal being, but not tied to cosmic responsibilities, not tied to the creators above, who they disdain. So that was what the whole original Luciferian thing was. Because of the X factor involved, in this cosmic overplus factor, there's called an unknown power of the X. In the Revelatorium, it gives the equations and so on, which are simple. They're not like huge mathematical. It's just simple drawing that show that there is it's what's called an X factor of energy in there. And when the cosmic overplus is involved, there's a little tiny piece of that X factor, the length of the X factor's arms grow just a wee bit. That's never existed before in creation, so it's called the unknown power of the X, because not even the creators have any idea what that can do, because it's never been done before. So this whole thing took place in the face of an unknown aspect, and of course, like a Pandora's box, it got loose, and away it went. So the Draconian, which is another solar sector, by this time, 50 billion years ago, they had gone into a regression, not a rebellion, just a regression. They had gone down a bit in frequency. They hadn't rebelled to the creators and so on. But when the Luciferians came along 5 million years ago, they said, holy mackerel, this is really neat stuff. So they embraced it. So that's why most of what everybody knows about his negatives was Draconian, because they took it on, not the whole, we're talking about a few prisoners and a couple of convicts in a prison compared to the whole population. Draconians are fine. It's just a few badasses. Anyway, that's what happened on Meldeck, because the worst of those guys were brought into Meldeck, and among the Draconians from Alpha Draconis, there was some that had taken the Luciferian self-will idea to its extreme end. So these became like demigod beings that are me alone, the worst selfish kind of consciousness you could possibly have. And they developed like black magic tricks of using the energies of the planet to be able to force you to do what they wanted you to do. That's what black magic is, strictly using to force your will onto others. Anyway, that became so severe that when they were using lasers, right, because they were pretty evolved and so on. The static condition of the atmosphere was so severe that the whole thing just blew. 10,000 years ago, see, right now we're in Aquarius. During Aquarius, the full galactic law of 144,000 energy principles are brought into the mass consciousness. But during the Leo dispensation, 6 dispensations earlier, solar laws brought into the consciousness, which is the 144 principles of the solar law. Well, that's what Atlantis was all about, which is why Atlantis is all about solar, this, solar, that, sun god, because solar law was being brought in. So because of the stability of Atlantis at the time and the volunteers that were here on Earth and so on, it was deemed to bring the ones that had to leave Meldeck because it exploded and let them incarnate into Atlantis in order to avail the higher energies and get free of their conditions. That was the plan. You can be out through your Akashic record. You can be out of materialization for a long, long time. And then when you rematerialize, your Akashic record brings everything right up as though it was the same day. So the 500 black masters, there was hundreds of thousands of, huge migration of Meldecians were brought into Atlantis, but including the 500 black masters. And they were set up in Sodom and Gomorrah, which is in North America, the cities of the plains. Gomorrah, which is crime, was centered just offshore Miami. Sodom, which was north of Spokane, in between which Creston in BC and Spokane was up in there. Black Masters factioned again, and they used lasers again. And this time, this is when Noah and his wife had to put an ark together to preserve the matrices of the animal kingdom. If the explosion occurred again, like it did before, this time only the atmosphere is over the two centers. This is the fires over Sodom and Gomorrah. Just the atmosphere exploded, but it was big enough because it caused the whole planet to rearrange. The islands in the middle sunk. There's an area just south of Spokane called the Palouse. It's enigmatic. Nobody knows how it got there, because the soil compound there is the same as the soil that you find away out in the middle prairies. But the wind blows from the west. So how the heck did the soil from the middle prairies get into the Palouse? Because the fires from Sodom flew south along the magnetic fields and scorched all that area down there. It's some of the richest soil in the world. But anyway, that's again, sort of a bit of a side issue. Now we're into, and this is interesting, we're into a current incarnation. So the 500 Black Masters have been behind the scenes. This is where David Icke and all these guys, the information that they're putting together deals with the fact that the Black Masters through the fourth dimension had been controlling the consciousness of people on the planet that would accept their frequencies, or they could tune in on and control and so on. And that's where you have all of the stuff that's been going on Earth in the background in a bad way and so on. Has all been under their bid in control. The Illuminati, all these guys, right up to the current day and so on. The 500 of the Black Masters now have all incarnated. They're out of the fourth dimension now. Their feet on the ground, and except for six. Six had reached the point when I said that if you didn't make it through the ascension of 2,000 years from now, you'd go to one of the other 2,500 planets. If after a bunch of those you still haven't made it, then it's proved that you're never gonna. You're sent back to the heart and center of creation. Your whole Akashic record and everything is burned off in the eternal fires of the Absolute Lake, called the Absolute Lake of Intelligence and Energy in the 16th dimension. Then you're expressed anew with a whole new being, soul atoms to start out with as a newborn. That's the idea of the eternal fires. It's gone.
So there's six black magicians, black masters. That to me springs to mind something I work with called the six god curse. Some kind of curse that these guys have created.
Well, actually, you're probably closer to the fact. Six of the masters were sitting over England. They were called the Crows. You may have come across that term. That term gets used. The Crows, one was over Fleet Street, the other was over the Buckingham Palace, And they were all controlling all through the centuries and so on what was going on. This is all part of this cabal stuff that's being terminated now, by the way. All that stuff is quickly now being cleaned up. The six that I'm talking about were actually sent back. The idea of 666, which keeps coming up, is something more interesting too. Everybody keeps looking for some guy walking around with 666 on the forehead and so on. When man fell into the third dimension, they had to incarnate into the matrices of the animal kingdom. In other words, we're no different than an animal. We have 2 legs, 2 arms, heart, knee, lungs, head, brain. We're an animal. We're just more sophisticated. Our consciousnesses are, but we're basically in the animal matrix. Okay? And the animal matrix was matrixed on carbon-12, which about 85% of the physical body is made up of carbon-12, which is an isotope of carbon that has 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. 666. Here's wisdom. You wisdom, let him count the number of the beast, because it is also the number of a man. Well, the number of the beast is their molecular 666 carbon atoms, and we're incarnated into that matrix, therefore it's also the number of a man. That's as simple as it. I mean, the 300 books on the shelf that talk about 666 come down to 2 sentences. 2 sentences. You know what I'm saying?
As humans, we tend to overthink things just a little bit.
Well, you overthink things when you don't know there's a farmer plowing the field. You have to try and figure out how come your whole hive jiggles every now and then. You can come up with 3,000 books of why your hive is jiggling or anthill is jiggling. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly how it works.
You know what I find is that as humans, we ask a question, we're given the answer, then we question the answer.
Then you question the answer. You know what? And that's funny you say it, because the one part of all this that I didn't get to yet is that when you are a triune celestial, when you're created in creation, you're created as a soul atom. You're created as a whole soul atom. You have 199 what are called ovarian atoms. Half of them are male, half are female, and one in the middle is the combined of both. But now you're say you're in the fifth dimension, all right? Or the seventh, so on. If you have to project down into a lower, you send down one of your ovarian atoms to do the work for. It's like an orchestra. You got these guys out all over the place, and you're calling all the shots and pulling all the strings. But they're a part of you doing when man incarnated into the and you're a fully androgyne male female being, two consciousness as one. That's the whole only begotten son daughter Christ principle. Right. It's the male female son daughter together as one being. One consciousness, but it's the two halves are there. It's two separate. It's like you have two halves. It's like 100% schizophrenic, only in a good way. You know what I mean? So now, when man incarnated into the third dimension, where the matrix was male on this side and female on that side, that ovarian atom had to split into two incarnations: a male incarnation over here and a female incarnation over there. Okay. Now, soul atoms are the two split atoms brought together. Everybody says, I found my soul atoms. This got beautiful, boobs. See, I found my soulmate. Well, your soulmate is somewhere on the planet who's your actual true other half. Mary Magdalene was Jesus' soulmate. That's what soulmates are. Soulmate in that incarnation 2,000 years ago. But what I'm trying to get at is that your soul atom, your triune celestial soul atom, in your incarnation, what happens is that it's down into the substance dimension in the mother's womb, and through its magnetic lines, and it draws substance in around itself. Boom, there you are, you're born. Triune, your real self, which is people call it your higher soul, but your soul atom self, at the age 3 or 4, will actually come in that body and take up residence in the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is where your soul atom is sitting. That's why you get your intuitions like it's almost like people call it the guardian angel. You don't do this, do that, do that. It's your soul atom self that's trying to get the outer consciousness, which is called the adopted fruit, the outer consciousness up into line with it, so that when you finish off, you're back up into the fifth dimension, reunited. See? That's what the whole process of evolution is. There's even in the fifth dimension, it's the same principle. It's done slightly different. But there's inner consciousness, higher self. There's the outer consciousness, the projected. It's called projected self. Your projections and so on. That's the outer ego, and that is brought into alignment through training, teaching, and hopefully paying attention up into attunement with your soul atom self.
That is where we're going to have to leave it, my friend. I've listened to all the Ashiana Dean stuff, and that is way over my head. You're there. You're over my head, but I can see it.
Well, that's the thing. See, when you're telling the truth, you feel the truth as it's being said to you. That's your filter, by the way. When you're reading stuff, there's truth in anything you're reading, so on. But there's also a lot of others, so you have to filter the wheat from the chaff. When it feels right, exactly. You know it's right.
Tonight, our guest has been Delahnnovah-Starr Livingstone. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking. Great to have you on. We'll see you in 2 weeks. This is Chris Kehler. We are out of here.